We're going live.
Whatever it is, we'll get it
Well,
later,
it is.
apparently, if I need to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Twyla says, I don't know what I'm saying. We're just going to wing it. So we are here to just wing it.
Story of our lives. Winging it.
Mm-hmm. Do have somebody on now. We have 3 on. Hello, everybody. Hi, Kilby. Carol Ann's watching.
Oh, yeah,
She's right on the ball.
These people are right on the ball.
Okay, so we are coming here to show you a quick demo from Twyla.
Thanks.
Twyla, sorry. Twyla's going to show you some of her projects and show you some of her tools, her favorite tools that she likes to use. Hi, Suzanne. And so it should be interesting because we haven't practiced this or decided what we're going to say. We're just going to wing it.
How about I pull this chair up before one of us
Falls on it? Well, I'm going to go on the other side.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So I'm going to take this down. Sorry, you guys, to get a little bit blurry.
You
Hi,
guys-
Shelly.
You guys might get dizzy with her walking away.
Yeah.
With that.
If do you want to spread that while I take it?
Sure.
Hi, Frida.
There you
Elizabeth Cameron.
Okay.
Mimi. Pamela Robichaud. Amanda. Okay, I'm going to turn the camera around and put Twyla on camera.
You go.
There we go, Twyla.
Okay. So I've had a few people ask about like the Lori Holt method of applique. And this is going to be the very basic start of how I started with Lori Holt Applique, just to give those people who haven't done it at all an idea. So I'm just going to show you a couple things. This is a really good basic thing that you can start with. Is this simple? This is just a little square table centerpiece or whatever.
So why is that so good? Because the pieces are bigger?
Because the pieces are bigger and they don't have a lot of weird shapes to them, right?
Okay.
So my suggestion is that you start with something a bit basic in shape till you get the feel for it. If you start with something that's very complicated and complex in the shaping, it takes a bit of getting used to the feel of how to turn that and make it look good. So this is all done scrappy, which is a really good scrappy project.
Cute. And I love your echoing on that.
Yeah, I did that on the machine, I'm not a home quilter like on a machine, but that
looks really cool.
So then this is just a bigger scrappy version of using up my scrap pile. So this is just the throw.
Those are pretty darn cute scraps.
Yeah, they are. I love scrappy. That's probably one of my favorite things. And this is all Lori Holt material. I don't think there's anything in it that isn't,
I forgot that I quilted that.
Yes, Deb did this one on her long
That's
arm.
been a while ago.
Yeah, it has been. So that's what we're going to look at, is just using the basics to that. So some of the stuff that you would need to start working on some of those type projects is Lori Holt's applique method. It isn't like a fusible applique, like your cutout templates that you fuse to Wonder Under or whatever. So, or steam, what is it you guys use? Because I don't do that.
Wonder Under or Steam a Seam or
right.
something.
So this is a different type of method. So it uses her interfacing, which comes in a pack like this, but this is not a fusible interfacing.
Okay.
She really recommends this tool, the Clover point-to-point turner, and it really is an excellent tool for her type of thing. Yep. Although I can tell you that if you have a Tupperware orange peeler in a pinch until you get one of these, it works.
Tupperware is probably just as expensive as Clover, actually.
It's probably more expensive, right? These you need some type of a little glue, like a washable glue. So she quite often, if you watch Lori Holt at all, recommends Sue Daly glue, which I've got one that I've used.
And I sometimes carry it. I can get it in.
You sometimes have it because I think I got mine from you, right?
Yeah,
so that's that. Or I've been using lately, this is the Acorn Precision Seam-Align glue, which Deb had got me onto. I think we used it for...
I can't remember.
Oh, it might have been for Nancy Steve's thing
Curve
on her
piecing.
miniature. No, her miniature.
Oh,
because
right.
she recommended like sometimes the glue instead of pins on miniatures.
Yeah.
But this stuff works great. And look at this. See that nice little pointy? Isn't that awesome? So you can really control like what a fine little drop or line of glue you're getting with that nice metal point.
Okay.
And then you can get this in a refillable
Yes,
Like
I sell the refills, so you
yeah,
don't
so
have to
you
get the.
so you just buy this piece once to have that nice little
Yeah.
cap. And the other thing I like about this one is that I've never had that tip clog with the glue.
Oh, really? That's
Ever.
strange.
Never.
Nice.
Yeah, so I really do like that one. So that's some of what you'll need.
Look at my messy cupboard, Karen. I wonder if Karen's watching.
Oh,
she would growl at us.
probably watching. So I'm just going to show you a few things. Oh, and this is the other thing. Lori uses this a lot. I do use it. Some. I probably don't use it as much as Lori, but it is handy if you don't want to get up and go to the iron, or if you don't have, like in your sewing room, an iron right handy to your seat or whatever.
Yep.
The seam roller or whatever.
Yeah.
So all you do, you need to use her. You don't need to use her shapes, but this is for any of her quilts or things.
Look how organized
that
Twyla
use-
is. She has made this little pouch for all
I've
of
got all
those.
kinds of these little
Aren't those
pouches,
cute?
and I
So-
keep my different sets in them. So these
They're
are
so
like the
cute.
Lori Holt templates that she uses for different quilts that she has out or whatever, right? So they're like a nice stiff plastic.
Some Wednesday, can you teach us how to do that pouch?
Oh, sure. That's
That would
simple.
be pretty cool
That
one.
is simple. So those are what you're using. So what I'm talking about, sticking with something basic to start, is don't go with something like this that's got the legs and a lot of bends or whatever. Pick something very, like with few, you know, like some of these more simple ones, right? Don't go with like something like that. Until you do a little bit, you're going to probably have trouble with the legs.
The innie and outie
Yeah,
curves.
or like the hand.
That would be harder.
Yeah, those would be harder. So this is why I picked this one to show you guys, because it's such a simple thing. So you start with your shapes. So for this one, obviously, the shape you're going to use is a shape similar to this, okay? So you take your, where's my under, my fusible, right here. So you take your interfacing and you actually draw around your shape on your interfacing.
Okay.
Okay, so then once you have drawn around, you've got this gadget, right, that looks like this. This goes on top of your material, always goes face up, and then your pen mark goes face up, or your pencil mark, whatever you're using. Put that on your scrap or your material, whatever, and then you're going to stitch around it.
Do you iron it at all, or you just stitch?
No, you just stitch. So if it's a big one, you might want to put a couple pins.
Okay.
I don't. I usually just take it. I find it sits pretty well on the fabric without pinning it.
Okay.
So then once you get ready to stitch, you're going to stitch around. I don't back stitch at all. I start to stitch, I stitch around, and when I get to where I started, I just continue on and over stitch for about half an inch or so.
I just want to look at some fabric.
And then you're going to take your scissors and you're going to trim that out. So when you draw this around, do not cut this out the exact size of that. Make sure you've got some extra, because this is your stitch line. You need a seam allowance around it,
Okay.
right? So here's like one that I've stitched that I've cut out a little bit and left the seam allowance. But then you're just going to take your scissors and you're going to trim around and leave a little bit of a seam allowance. So here's one I've trimmed. Okay? When you get to a point, it's a good idea to either trim your points straight across to get rid of some bulk, or you can angle it in a bit. Just be careful that you don't actually cut your stitch line, right? You just want to remove a little bit of bulk that's in that point. Then you're going to, there's two ways you can do this. I am not brave enough to do the way some people do. I grab my two pieces, I pull it apart, make sure you don't have your fabric, you just have your interfacing, make a little snip, and then you're just going to make a couple lines here, and you don't go right down to the tip, just leave it sort of, you just want enough to be able to get in there to turn it around, right? Yes.
Goodbye, Wally.
So then you're just going to use your fingers to start, and you're just going to go in and you're going to loosely turn this around. And it's normal for it to look something like this when you get to this stage. Then you're going to grab your handy dandy clover thing, and when you get to this point and you start poking it out, try to keep your point of your turner. I don't know if you're going to be able to pick this up, but you can see where your seam allowance is, right? You don't want to be, is that showing at all?
Yeah, it is.
You don't want to be just on the interfacing when you're poking out, because that will rip easier than the fabric will rip. So try to get the point of your turner
Under.
Can you see there
Yep,
now
you
that I'm
can.
under that, right?
Yep.
So that's where you're going to go. And I like to lay it down and just kind of work it around. When you get to the up here, gently push it out. When you get to the point, turn your point turner from being flat, more on an angle, and just gently work your point out. Now, one thing that if you think you're going to get a absolutely perfect applique with this, like you do your fusible that cuts out, that you can really control like your points, how sharp you cut them, you're probably not going to get that with this type. It's more of a country or primitive look or whatever, but all of it will get better the more you practice, because at first it can be pretty rough until you get the hang of it. Once you get it to this stage, I like to take my fingers, my point turner, and just kind of, you want to see that little bit of your fabric. Can you see that?
Yeah, you can.
Because if you go too much this way, then
You're
when you
gonna
go
see
to,
the
you're going to
white.
see your white when you stitch it down,
Oh,
right?
good point.
So you want to see that little bit of fabric all the way around. And this is where a lot of people will then take their roller or whatever, if you don't want to get up and go to the ironing board every single time. Some people prefer not to iron. They prefer the seam roller because they like their applique when it's on the quilt to be a little
puffy.
puffier than others,
Yeah.
right? But that's where you'd either just grab your roller and just give it a little roll, just to sort of get a memory on the edge there of where you want that, right? So that's all there is. Then when you get ready to put it on your fabric, you're just going to place it wherever you want it, and that's where your glue comes in, which, if I could find it, would help. So I typically would just put a dot, and a couple dots up here. I prefer to put them all and then run the iron over them, and it's almost like the iron activates the glue a bit more.
Okay.
Now, don't panic about gluing these down. They can be lifted. Like, you might have to give it a little tug. If you get it all on there and you say,
It's not centered.
it's
or-
not centered or whatever, I don't like where that one is, I want to move it out a bit, you can pull it out a bit.
Okay.
Like, it just has a little bit of resistance.
So then
This washes.
Okay. So
Right?
then you can either hand applique or machine applique.
You can. So you can either hand applique around the edge if you like hand stitching. This, I don't know, you probably won't be able to see. That is actually machine appliqued.
Did you use invisible
I
thread?
used invisible thread. And
Okay.
a lot of people, if you follow Lori Holt's channels or people who use this, a lot of people will actually change their thread color on everyone. And I
not you
can't
too.
be bothered. So I like the invisible thread. You don't see it. There's two shades in the invisible thread.
A
There's
smoke and a clear.
Yeah.
The
So if you're
smoke-
doing a really dark fabric,
The smoke.
the smoke doesn't show up as much as the clear would.
Yeah.
So this is just the clear.
Can you grab an invisible thread over there, Wally, to show
You
them the package that works so
don't
well?
you don't use invisible thread in your bobbin.
No, that's a good point.
Use your regular, whatever you're using, glide or Aurifil or whatever.
Can
your
you
bobbin.
tell them about if they are doing a complicated piece, cutting your
yeah.
curves? Yeah.
So, if you're going, oh, the other thing I was going to show you before we get to that part, there's a couple things I want to point out. This doesn't limit you just to
all right.
using Lori Holt's templates or whatever. You can use this. What I like about this is that you can go to any, anything you can find online. Like, this was just a template I loaded off of Google, right, of a star. So you're not limited to that. Anything that you could draw or that you could download off of Google, you can do the piece, right?
Cool.
when
And you
you're-
prefer the Lori Holt interfacing as opposed to just regular interfacing?
I do.
Why?
Her interfacing was designed. She used this method and used other interfacing for a few years, and she made it work. And I have used other. I've actually used fusible with hers, like a one-sided fusible. That after I got it turned, I fused down the fusible side or whatever,
yeah.
right? But I find it tears easier. This is made specifically for this type, and to work with like these tools when you're turning.
So it doesn't tear as well?
It will tear if you go crazy
Okay.
with it. But if you follow those couple points that I pointed out, like to keep that point on the fabric side, not the interfacing side, those type things, you know, you'll do fine. But
Does anybody have any questions? Because I can read the questions for Twyla if you have anything to ask her.
so for cutting, if you're doing a more complicated shape, so say the star for starters, any cleavage, what is considered a cleavage, so going in, or like on these cat legs, you have to clip to your seam in a cleavage,
Okay.
okay?
How close to the seam do you go?
As close as you can get with a nice sharp pair of scissors without cutting the seam. Now don't panic. If you cut the seam, turn it back,
Just do another
just
stitch.
smooth it out, take it back, and just run your machine stitching like just inside in that spot, just one fine line to hold
Okay.
it back down. So cleavage you clip, and you clip inner curves, not outer curves. So an outer curve doesn't have to be clipped,
Okay.
but an inner curve will not lay flat if you don't clip
Just
it.
there. Wait.
I've got one here somewhere. If I can find, here, the bird. This would be an inner curve,
Okay.
right? As opposed to this being an outer curve, right? So you don't have to clip those. Those will lay flat.
Okay.
Any place you've got a curve, you've got to
Concave or
go in and make a
convex?
few snips.
Okay.
Okay?
Somebody wanted to know what type of stitch you use. Do you use the blanket stitch or do you?
For applique,
Applique?
I use a small zigzag.
Oh, do you?
I do. That's what I like. But
Okay.
I don't like it wide. I make
Okay.
it narrow. But you can't, when you use the invisible thread,
You can't really see it.
You don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So if you want to do applique, but blanket stitch, you can.
So somebody's asking what was the knife thing that you had in your hand. It wasn't.
This is the clover.
Yeah, but it's not really a knife.
It's not a knife. It's
It's just
called
a-
the point-to-point turner made by Clover. So one end is your point. The other end is, what do they call that? A Hera marker that they
Yeah.
use. I don't use it for this, but apparently you can score material
Yeah.
with that end and it leaves a mark, like if you want to mark something or whatever. I don't use it for that. I've actually used this end. If you've got a rounded,
No.
if you've got a rounded something, sometimes that will fit right in nice too, like to make a round
Okay.
instead of the point.
Okay. So somebody wants to see that interfacing package again. It's Lori Holt.
This is the Lori Holt. It's called sew-in interfacing.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way it comes, is in individual packages like this, which
It's what, 2 meters?
3 yards.
3 yards. for
20
15.
by 108. So it does quite a bit. Like one of these packages does quite a bit.
Yeah. And Melissa likes your storage bag, so we're going to have to do that next Wednesday, maybe. We'll
Okay.
give that class.
The other thing to keep in mind is if you're doing something like these fingers, you're going to, you're actually going to clip down in here, but you might want to cut a little bit narrower seam allowance in something as narrow as
Okay.
that, right?
Yeah.
Just to reduce your bulk a bit in there, right? Because once you turn it and stitch it down, it's not going anywhere because you're going to stitch right along the edge,
Yeah.
right? So it anchors it very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I sew with a little bit shorter stitch length than probably a lot of people do. And it's hard for me to say because on a Juki, I find your stitch length, like my Juki stitch length isn't the same as my Pfaff
Yeah.
stitch length.
I find it's different too.
Yeah. So the reason I like it a little bit shorter is if you have a really long stitch
Your
as you're
point's not
turning,
going to go through.
your point's going to poke through a
through the
lot
stitch.
easier. You're not going to get those nice corners quite as nice.
Yep.
The other thing I want to show you, where did it go? Your, I wonder what I did with
Show
that.
them your cute circle bag too. Your cute.
Oh yeah, I'll show them that in a minute.
What are you looking for?
Well, I just wanted to show, like, one of the things that's really important when you're doing this is the way you actually stitch it to your fabric. Because if, when you're stitching around your,
I'm going to come in close.
this,
Mm-hmm.
and this isn't a good example, but if, say on those fingers, where did they go? As you're doing your corners on these fingers, if when you stitch, you're going up to a point or you're going like a little square here, you know, like straight across before you curve,
Yeah.
you're not going to get as nice of a curve when you go to put it out,
So
right?
be careful when you're stitching
Yeah,
curves.
so be careful and follow your line. That's what I found at first is a lot of my problems when my shapes weren't looking quite as rounded as I wanted
You
them
weren't
to.
sewing right on the line.
I was getting off the line or I wasn't getting that nice gentle curve. I was
But
doing
those
3 or 4
lines,
straight
yeah.
stitches, then turning a little bit and it was almost making like a pointy corner when I turned instead of getting that nice.
So I guess the start of it is make sure you trace it correctly.
Right, but then just watch your
Accurately.
stitching. So definitely not something to do with a closed in foot on your machine. Make sure you're using an
Yeah.
open toe foot, right?
Yep.
I think that was,
Almost done.
this was just another one. I don't know if this was one I was going to show. What was this? This one might have been one I was going to show, but I don't. I did have one that I had purposely made a mistake when I was doing it, but I don't think I brought it.
When you do this.
Yep, so I'm just going around. This one is a flower. So just make sure your point is under there. I don't know if this is the one that I purposely sewed crappy or if this, yeah, I think it is right there. Yep, look at that. I purposely sewed one crappy so you would see. So I've pushed that out as far as it will go there. But you see how it's sort of flat across there and it's supposed to be more rounded like that, right? And that's because my stitch line,
This one looks better than this one.
oh, maybe from that,
Yeah,
from this
from the-
angle does it?
Yeah. One's crappy and one's good. This is the correct.
No, this is
the crappy one according to the camera.
oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Because no, this to me looks flat across the top. Anyway, that's the point I'm trying to make is that,
Okay.
or here, look at this one. See how I don't have quite as much of a nice little curve in there?
Yeah, you
Because I
don't.
got off of the, I got
Yeah.
off of my sewing line and went too far to the outside, right?
Okay.
So your stitch line, because it should have looked more nice rounded like that, right?
Okay.
So that's why that's important to follow your stitch line.
Okay.
What did you want me to show them this? Oh, Deb wanted me to show you this.
This bag, and then we have to go because I
Yeah.
have a customer that needs fabric cut. Sorry.
This is just a little bag that I whipped
Isn't
up
that
out of some
cute?
of Deb's sale fabric.
Yeah. So maybe we'll get you to do a tutorial on that.
So that was just a little,
Okay. So everybody,
Okay.
thanks for joining. Thank you, Twyla, so much for your
no
tutorial.
problem.
It was pretty cool. Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.